Beep, a single sharp tone, then nothing, or rather everything, a wash of static. It filled the screen, it filled the air, a world rendered in monochrome, no colour, just shades of grey, blacks too deep, whites too bright, an old film reel stuck on a broken frame. The hum started subtly, a low thrum, barely noticeable at first, beneath the hiss. It vibrated through the floor, up the walls, a constant companion to the visual snow. This place was not silent. It was never silent. The silence was a memory, a forgotten luxury. Now only the hum and the crackle, a world defined by its interference. Shadows danced where no light source dictated. They stretched and contracted, illogical, wrong. Corners of rooms seemed to pulse softly, as if the geometry itself was unsure. Lines wavered, edges blurred, then sharpened, a constant, unsettling flux. The world was a bad reception, a signal struggling to break through the noise. There was no sun, no moon, just a pervasive, dull luminescence. It seeped from everywhere and nowhere, illuminating a landscape of glitches. Every surface seemed to shimmer. Slightly, a faint digital tremor, unceasing. This was normal now, or what passed for it, the baseline of a broken existence. The eyes struggled to focus. Everything was overlaid, a veil of interference. Horizontal lines scrolled up, down, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. They sliced through objects, through the air, a persistent visual interruption, uninvited. It was like watching life through a broken monitor, one that was perpetually on the fritz. Shapes would momentarily duplicate. Ghost images, a chair, then two, then one again. The second, a transparent echo, fading. It happened to walls, to floors, to everything. Depth perception became a guessing game. Was that surface near or far? The glitches played tricks. Cruel, silent tricks, leaving a residue of doubt, always doubt. Sometimes a patch of vision would pixelate, a square of chunky blocks, replacing detail. It would linger, then dissolve back, leaving behind a momentary blindness, a brief, terrifying void in the grey. These patches moved, randomly, like a sensor's hand, but with no clear purpose. Just another layer of visual chaos. The world flickered, constantly, not like a faulty light bulb, more fundamental, as if the very fabric of sight was unstable. One moment, sharp, defined edges, the next a soft, blurry mess, then back again in an instant. This constant shift was exhausting, a relentless assault on the senses. The auditory landscape mirrored the visual, a cacophony of digital detritus. The initial beep was long gone, swallowed, replaced by a chorus of clicks, pops, hisses, sounds without sources, phantoms in the air. A high-pitched whine would appear, then vanish, replaced by a low, guttural crunch. The world was audibly tearing itself apart. Footsteps, if they occurred, were not clean, they were layered. With static, with a stutter. Thud, zt, thud, click, crackle step. Each sound was corrupted, degraded, as if recorded on ancient damaged tape, played back through a broken speaker. The simple act of moving created noise, a symphony of malfunction. Sometimes a sound would loop endlessly, a tiny fragment, a microsecond, repeated, drilling into the consciousness, a digital water torture, maddening. Then, just as suddenly, it would stop, leaving a ringing silence, more oppressive, before the next random noise took its place. There was no pattern, no rhythm, only chaos. The hum persisted beneath it all, the foundational layer of sound. But even it was not immune. It would sometimes skip, stutter, its frequency shifting, warping, a deep bass throb, then a thin, reedy whine, the world's broken heartbeat, unsteady, a soundtrack to total system failure. Objects would sometimes vanish, instantly, not fade, not crumble, simply cease to be, a cup on a table, there, gone. No sound, no warning, just absence, leaving an empty space, a question mark. The mind would try to fill the gap and fail. It was a constant, silent subtraction, as if an unseen editor was at work. Then just as inexplicably they might return, or something else entirely would appear, a book where the cup had been, a strange, unfamiliar artifact. There was no logic, no reason, just the arbitrary whim of the glitch. The environment was a stage, constantly reset by a mad, invisible stagehand. Textures, too, were subject to change. A smooth wall could suddenly become rough, pixelated, like coarse sandpaper. Then, moments later, glossy, reflective. The tactile world was as unreliable as the visual. One could never trust what one touched, or what one saw, or what one heard. A total sensory betrayal. The glitches seemed to target memory or perception. Was that door always there? Did that corridor always turn left? Doubt gnawed, constantly. The world was a fluid, shifting puzzle, its pieces rearranged by an unseen force, leaving the observer adrift, unmoored in a sea of perpetual uncertainty. Section 5, Corrupted Code, when the world stutters. Movement became a strange dance, a step forward, then a tiny jump back, as if reality itself was buffering, lagging. Progress was jerky, unnatural, like a corrupted video file, playing poorly. The body would sometimes freeze mid-motion for a fraction of a second or longer. Held captive by the stuttering world, the air itself felt thick, viscous, as if moving through digital treacle. Every action required more effort. The glitches added a physical resistance, a weight to the already oppressive atmosphere. It was a struggle against the medium, against the very code of this broken place, a fight against the pervasive error. Sometimes the world would fast forward, briefly, a blur of motion, a skipped heartbeat, then back to the usual stuttering pace. These moments were disorienting, nauseating, a sudden lurch in the flow of time, as if the playback speed was erratic, controlled by a faulty, unseen mechanism, leaving a lingering sense of vertigo. The glitches were not just passive, they interacted, they interfered. An attempt to open a door, met with resistance. The door flickers, refuses to budge, then suddenly it swings open, too fast, slamming against the wall with a distorted crash. Every simple task became a negotiation with the corrupted laws of this reality. Section 6. Whispers of white noise, a symphony of distortion. The white noise was more than just background. It had layers, textures, depths. Sometimes it would coalesce, almost forming words, almost, but never quite. Whispers, muffled, indecipherable, lost in the static, teasing the edge of understanding. Were they real, or just auditory pareidolia? The mind, desperate for meaning in the noise. The static on screens was not uniform. It swirled, it pulsed, it formed patterns, ephemeral faces, distorted landscapes, appearing for a moment, then dissolving, like Rorschach tests in a snowstorm. Each interpretation was personal, subjective, and ultimately meaningless. Or so it seemed. Another trick of the fractured light. The very air seemed to vibrate with unseen data. A constant, silent transmission, corrupted. It prickled the skin, raised the hairs on arms, a feeling of being immersed, drowned, in an ocean of broken information. The glitches were not just errors, they felt like a language, unintelligible, spoken by the world itself, in its death throes. Sometimes a pure tone would cut through, high-pitched, piercing, like the initial beep, but sustained, unwavering. For seconds, it would silence the other noises, briefly, a moment of stark, painful clarity, before the cacophony rushed back in, louder. These tones felt like system warnings, alerts from a dying machine. Section 7. The shifting real surfaces that lie. Surfaces were untrustworthy, deceptive. A floor might appear solid, stable, but then ripple like water. Or a section might vanish, revealing nothingness, a void of pure black static below. Walking was an act of faith or folly. Each step a gamble on shifting ground. The physical world was a mirage. Walls would breathe, subtly expanding, contracting, as if organic. Their texture would crawl, slowly, patterns of light and shadow moving, like digital insects, under the skin of reality. It was unsettling, deeply wrong, the inanimate imbued with a disturbing life, a grotesque parody of existence. Objects cast shadows that did not match, or cast no shadows at all. Light behaved erratically, bending, twisting, ignoring the known laws of physics. A single dim light source could create multiple conflicting shadows, or plunge a small area into absolute darkness. While the space next to it remained grey, the feeling of solidity was an illusion. Reach out to touch a wall. The hand might pass through briefly, encountering only a cold, tingling static, then solid again, unyielding. This inconsistency was maddening. It eroded trust in the senses, leaving only confusion and a creeping dread. Section 8. System Overload, the Crescendo of Chaos. There were moments of intense escalation. The glitches would multiply, amplify. The visual static becoming a blizzard, the sounds a deafening roar of distortion, the stutters so frequent, movement impossible. It felt like a total system crash, imminent. The world on the verge of complete collapse. A final catastrophic error. During these episodes, reality fractured. Visibly, large blocks of the environment would shear off, floating, rotating in the grey void like digital debris. After an explosion, the air would fill with pixelated shrapnel, geometric shapes flashing, disappearing, a maelstrom of pure raw data, uncontrolled. The underlying code breaking apart. The hum would become a violent shudder, shaking everything, the floor, the walls, the body, as if a giant, unseen machine was tearing itself apart. The sound was physical, a pressure on the chest. It was overwhelming, all-consuming, a sensory overload designed to break the mind, or perhaps just the random output of a system in its final agonizing moments. Then, as suddenly as it began, it would subside, not completely, never completely, but back to the normal level of glitch, leaving behind a ringing silence, a shaken calm, and the lingering image of total disintegration, a glimpse of the void that lay beneath. These episodes were terrifying, exhausting, and becoming more frequent. Section 9. Persistent static, the unending glitch. The world did not end. It just continued, broken, glitching, unstable. There was no explanation, no solution, only the persistent static, the constant hum, the endless parade of errors. Confusion was the only certainty, oddity the only constant. A monochrome nightmare without end. The unease never faded, it became a part of existence. A low-level thrum of anxiety, matching the hum of the broken world. Every flicker, every stutter, a reminder of the fragility, the wrongness of it all. There was no escape, no other place to go. This was it. The static was home, a home built on corrupted foundations. The mystery remained unsolved, unsolvable. What caused this? Why this way? Were there others? Or was this a solitary madness? The glitches offered no answers, only more questions. They were a language of pure, unadulterated chaos, a message without a sender or a meaning, just the raw, unfiltered output of a broken system, a testament to an unknown catastrophe. And so the static played on, an eternal, looping reel of distortion. The grey light flickered, the shadows danced, the hum vibrated through everything, a world caught in a perpetual glitch, a film stuck on its most unsettling scene, forever and ever. Beep, hiss, crackle, fade to black or grey.